Ella and I had been married for 6 years. I wouldn't say everything was perfect during that time, but I always believed we were a team. We started from nothing. Back then, I was just launching my first business, a small marketing startup in Austin, Texas. Ella stood by me through sleepless nights as I worked on our first orders. I always thought she was with me not for the money. We didn't have any back then. Over the years, things changed. My business took off, then I started a second, and eventually a third. Now, I own 3 companies and a couple dozen cars, including a Ferrari, a Bentley, and a Maybach. Our home is a mansion overlooking the lake, where every morning smells like fresh coffee and peace, and every evening like wine and serenity. I built a life where Ella could live like a queen. Not because I had to, but because I loved her. That we never had kids. That was a mutual decision. We said we'd enjoy life together first. Later, when she mentioned she wasn't ready yet, I didn't press the issue. I'm not the kind of man who forces things. But at some point, I noticed something had shifted between us. It started with little things. She smiled less, spent more time out of the house, grew distant. I asked if everything was okay. She just nodded and said, "I'm just tired." I believed her. Like a fool, the warning signs came quietly, almost invisibly. She started hiding her phone. Before, it was always lying around, on the kitchen counter, in the living room, even in our bedroom. Now it was always with her. She even took it into the shower. I once caught her deleting messages right in front of me, just turned the screen away, a couple of swipes, and done. I pretended not to notice. That I'm not paranoid. I'm a man who believes in trust. But strangely enough, I have a damn good intuition when it comes to people, especially my wife. That I didn't confront her. I just started watching more carefully. She stayed late at work more often. Started going into the office on weekends. Then she told me she had to go on a short business trip, just 3 days. We usually talked through her travel plans in detail, where, with whom, which hotel. This time, it was vague, bits and pieces of information. No city, no hotel name, no colleagues mentioned. That's when I crossed a line I'd never even considered before. I asked one of my people, a private investigator, to look into it. Nothing over the top. Just verify if there really was a business trip, who was going, the basics. And that's when the truth began to unravel. Yes, there was a trip. But she didn't go with her boss or a team, like she claimed. She went with just one employee, a guy named Trevor, who, as I later learned, is only 19 years old. He's an assistant at her company. Just started. A total rookie. They booked a double room together. Spent 2 days holed up in that hotel. That I couldn't believe it. I read the report over and over. Stared at the photos like I was frozen in time. My wife, the woman I thought was mature, intelligent, elegant, was cheating on me with a teenager. A kid with no steady paycheck, no education, no real future. One question kept echoing in my head: why? I'm not some old man, I'm 35. I'm in great shape, I work out, I'm successful, I have status, money. I've never cheated. Never disrespected her. I gave her everything. Everything she ever dreamed of, and she chose this, some broke office boy barely scraping by. She traded our entire life, everything we built together, for some cheap thrill. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in my office, staring into the dark window, feeling nothing. No pain. No anger. Just emptiness. Like someone had flipped a switch and turned me off. One thing was clear, everything had changed, and there was no going back. That I didn't blow up right away. Inside, I was burning, but I kept my cool. I wanted to hear her version of the story before making any final decisions. Though, if I'm being honest, I already knew the truth. I just wanted to see how she'd try to talk her way out of it. When Ella got back from her so-called business trip, I greeted her like usual, calm and composed. She walked through the door, the security system beeped to life, her heels echoed on the marble floor, and the scent of her perfume brought back memories of when I used to be happy. She smiled, tossed her bag onto the couch, walked up to me, and kissed me on the cheek, like nothing had happened. "How was the trip?" I asked, pouring white wine into 2 glasses. "Exhausting," she sighed, stretching. "Endless meetings, clients, reports. I'm dead tired." There it was, the first lie that I nodded, took a sip, and locked eyes with her. "And Trevor? Did he manage all right?" Her glass froze mid-air. For a second, she went completely still. Then she quickly recovered. "Trevor? Oh, yeah, I think he was with a different group. We barely crossed paths." Second lie. This time, straight to my face that I set my glass down. "I know everything, Ella. The hotel. The room. The security footage. You spent 2 days in bed with a boy who's young enough for you to be his older sister." Her face turned pale. Her lips trembled. "What? You were spying on me?" I let out a laugh, cold, hollow, without joy or anger. "No. I was protecting myself. And the craziest part? I didn't believe it at first. Thought maybe there was a mistake. But you made it perfectly clear." She stayed silent. No tears. No excuses. Just silence. "Why?" I asked, finally. "Just tell me the truth. Why did you do it? I gave you everything. You lacked for nothing. You lived like royalty. Why would you throw that away for this?" She looked at me like she didn't even know the answer herself. "I don't know," she whispered. With him, I felt different. Lighter. Younger. He admired me. It was fun. No pressure. None of your perfection. There it was. My perfection had become a burden. I tried to be the best for her, and she ended up chasing some teenage fantasy like in one of those movies about forbidden passion. Only this wasn't a movie. This was real-life fun. I stared at her, cold and sharp. "You destroyed 6 years of marriage for fun?" She didn't answer. Just turned her face away. I stood up, walked to the wall, and activated the control panel. My house, my system. I navigated to the asset management section, opened the accounts, pulled up every document, every gift, every car that had been under her name, and revoked it all. Legally, it wasn't hard. Everything had been structured carefully, through trusts and business entities. She had access, but she owned nothing. When I turned back around, she was staring at me in horror. "You can't," she whispered. "I already did. Everything you had, was a gift. And now it's been taken back." I never raised my voice. Not once. That made it even more terrifying. "You can stay here for a couple of days while you find a place. After that, we're done. Completely." She stepped forward, tried to take my hand, like she used to, like maybe there was still a way back. "Gareth, please. I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. It was a moment of weakness." "And the 6 years? Were they just temporary too?" I pulled my hand away. "Don't try to play me, Ella. You made your choice. Now you live with it." I didn't watch her cry. Didn't listen as she called out my name. I just went upstairs to my office and closed the door behind me. Sank into the chair. Buried my face in my hands. Everything I built. Everything I believed in, shattered, and by morning, I knew one thing for certain. I needed to meet Trevor.It first, to make him pay. Harshly. Permanently, but I had no idea that meeting him would change everything. That I'm not the kind of man who forgives easily, especially not betrayal. That I've always believed, if someone drives a knife into your back, you pull it out, and you make damn sure they don't walk away unscathed. So when I found out where Trevor lived, that 19-year-old lover of my wife, I went there, not for a talk. Not for closure. That I wanted to look him in the eye. That I wanted him to understand what he helped destroy, and maybe, just maybe, to feel a fraction of the pain I'd been drowning in these past few days. That I pulled up to his place, if you could even call it that. A worn-down apartment complex on the edge of town. I was expecting anything, some cocky punk, smug, arrogant, but when he opened the door, he was just a scared kid, thin. Confused. Eyes wide with panic. No trace of bravado. He looked at me like I was a cop with a warrant in hand, and in that moment, I realized, he was terrified, not because I was Gareth Weston, owner of 3 companies, but because he didn't even understand how he ended up in this mess. You Trevor? I asked, calm and steady. He swallowed hard, nodding. Yes, sir. Is this about Ella? I nodded in silence. His gaze dropped to the floor. I don't even know how it happened. She said things were complicated between you two. That you'd grown distant. I fell for it. I'm 19. I was stupid. I'm sorry. I waited for the anger. I wanted him to lie, to dodge, to act like a jerk, to give me a reason, but he didn't. He just stood there, lost, broken, a kid who'd been handed a chance to feel wanted. He wasn't a predator. He was a toy. A prop my wife used to fill the void inside her. You know who I am? I asked, my tone shifting. He nodded quickly. Of course. Everyone at the office does. You own, pretty much everything. I looked at him, the worn-out sneakers, the faded t-shirt, the heat-blasted apartment with no AC. He was living off $14 an hour while my wife was pulling into our driveway in a $180,000 Porsche, and suddenly, I felt sorry for him. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my checkbook, wrote him a number big enough to pack up, leave town, find a better apartment, maybe even enroll in college. He stared at the check like it was a ticket to another life. Leave, Trevor. Move somewhere new. Start fresh. You're serious? He asked, stunned. But why? I shrugged. Because I know who's really at fault in this story. And it's not you. He thanked me, not with a fake smile or slick words, genuinely, like a kid who finally caught a break in a life that hadn't given him many. I turned around and walked away. Didn't look back. When I got into my car, I felt something strange, not relief, but the anger was gone too. I started remembering how Ella and I met. How she was my muse. How we dreamed together, made plans, painted our future, and how it all collapsed, not because someone seduced someone, but because at some point, she decided it wasn't enough, stability wasn't enough, love wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. I glanced in the rearview mirror, young, successful, confident, and still, betrayed. That day, I realized something. Sometimes people don't cheat because something is wrong with you, they cheat because something's broken in them, because they're bored. Empty. Hollow inside, and they'll try to fill that hole with anything, even a cheap, fleeting affair. Ella lost everything, the money, the status, the respect, and most of all, she lost me. I could have destroyed her, taken her to court, fired her, made sure she became a ghost in my world, but I didn't. I simply erased her, quietly, coldly, permanently, and me, I stayed true to myself, stronger than before, and you know what? I regret nothing, because in losing her, I found something far more valuable. I found myself.